Hi, my name is Afonso Benzo, and today I'll be presenting to you my FOA. My FOA is on swearing in the English language. So, first I'd like to talk about the origin of swearing. So among my research, I found four more or less mainly used swears in the English dialect and their origins, what languages they came from. So the word fuck came from the Norwegian fuka. In Norwegian, it's meant to copulate. The word shit came from the Old English sitte, and it's more or less sort of meant diarrhea. Then we have the word bitch, which also came from the Old English, and it was originally pronounced bitze. And interestingly enough, it meant female dog, which is basically the original meaning that we have today. Then we have the word piss. This word came from the French pisser, and it meant to urinate. What you can notice about these four words, which is quite interesting, is that they more or less still have the same meaning. And that just shows how much swearing leaves an imprint on our language and how strong it is, and how it's amazing that for thousands, maybe 500 years, these words have kept more or less the same meaning. However, with our present society, we have started to use these words in different ways and make them more insulting, more perverse, but they still hold the same foundations. So then there's the 5 types of swearing. Steven Pinker is a Canadian psychologist, and he developed a theory that there are 5 possible functions for swearing. So first, there's dysphomistic swearing. This is basically the opposite of a euphemism. Instead of the euphemistic version of make love, we have the dysphomistic version, fuck. This allows someone to express a word, I guess, or an action, in a more aggressive way. And for example, if you say make love, it's a much more peaceful and more emotional word than the primal fuck. Then we have abusive swearing. This is basically insulting. For example, you cunt. This swearing is basically used to insult someone, and it's used by humans to maybe present their discontent with another human being and how much they hate them. Then we have idiomatic swearing. This kind of swearing is basically used to set the mood. For example, a friend is at a party and he tells his friends, "Wow, this party is shit." This is basically used to, the friend to make the other friends feel like, they're on the same page. It's a chill environment. It's a safe environment. Everyone's on the, they're all comfortable with each other, and that's why he uses this kind of swearing. Then we have emphatic swearing. This is basically used to emphasize something. For example, someone has a math class, and after he says to his friends, "I really fucking hated that class." This swear in that sentence, as you may notice, really emphasizes what the person originally meant to say. For example, if it said, "I really hated that class," maybe the friends wouldn't understand the emotion behind that person's words. As to "I really fucking hated that class" really makes his friends understand, wow, he really does hate that class. So then we have cathartic swearing. This is the most natural swearing. It's basically to express a negative emotion, and it's when, for example, someone stubs a toe on a sofa and says, "fuck." This is very natural. It comes very naturally to human beings. Even human beings that don't use a lot of swears still find themselves using cathartic swearing, which just proves that swearing has become such a natural part of humans' vocabulary and even their lives, their beings themselves. So then we have supernatural swearing. Unlike other types of swearing, this kind of swearing is actually when you refer to something good. Supernatural swearing is exactly when someone refers to God in vain. This type of swearing was extremely taboo in Victorian ages. It was a very religious society, so it was believed that when you used the Lord's name in vain, when you used supernatural swearing, you were actually injuring God Himself physically. So, and these words were therefore replaced with euphemistic versions, such as zounds. This meant God's wounds, and gadzooks. This meant God's hooks. And these words were used for these people to have a less taboo version of these words and able to swear like that. So, even though it's lost its negative connotation, supernatural swearing is still quite shamed upon in many religious societies. And for example, if you say "Oh God" or "Goddamn" in front of a religious person, you might notice that they might take it to heart and they might be offended by that, because they were always brought up to believe that saying the Lord's name in vain is it's not allowed and it's offensive. So, what makes swearing different? Historically, what makes it different from normal words? Historically, the lower class Saxons in English society used words we know now as swears, and they used them more regularly. And the upper class Normans, however, used the words that we know as being euphemistic, more appropriate for someone you respect more. It's they create the difference between using a word that's very comfortable, you're very comfortable with the person, and the polite language. And this was because lower class Saxons, they were all comfortable with each other. They were all basically working class, and they had a hard life and they had to express that. As to the upper class Normans, they were trying to get up in life. Most of them were merchants and people of the court. And these people wanted people to respect them, and therefore they used correct and politically correct words that would make them sound more respectable and more polite. For example, as where the lower class Saxons would use the word shit, upper class Normans would use the word defecate in order to look more respectable. So the question is, do humans require swears? This isn't really a very set argument. You can't exactly say if they do require swears. We will never know. But it does, however, consist of 0.7% of our vocabulary, of our everyday vocabulary. And even though that might not seem like much, if you think about it, personal pronouns such as we and ours, they only compose 1% of our vocabulary, which makes swearing quite up there with some of our mostly commonly used words. And even though their negative connotation is what most people frown upon, it is what makes them indispensable, because these strong emotions such as pain, disgust, happiness, excitement, these words require strong words that can really express what that person is feeling at the moment. And that's what makes them so indispensable, because without these swear words, we really wouldn't have something to express them. And the fact is, if they weren't useful or required, people would not have developed them into their languages. If you notice, most of these main swears that we use today, they have been developed over 500 years, 1,000 years, and they've always been developing, because in Roman times they have different swears, but they've always been developing new swears for the situations that they're in. And if you notice, every day the world becomes more politically free, more perverse, more primal. Every day people become they have more freedom of expression, and that's what's helped us develop those words, because it's really human instinct to want to use these words to express emotionally charged moments. So that's my FOA. Thank you very much for watching.